afternoon, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from, and welcome to today's webinar, Amadeus and NDC Moving Forward. My name is Cara Kurtz, and I am the Senior Coordinator of Business Development at ASTA, and I will also be the organizer for today's presentation. We are very happy to welcome today's presenter, Ludo Verhegen. He was supposed to be joined by Mr. Robert Buckman, but unfortunately, Robert had some family circumstances that did take precedent today, and we are certainly keeping him and his family in our prayers. Ludo is the Director of Air Connect Acceleration and Travel Channels for Amadeus, and he's currently Content Adoption Strategy and Amadeus's Travel Channels Division and responsible for defining and maximizing the adoption of Amadeus's travel platform. He has worked with Amadeus for 12 years, which is an incredible amount of time, and has been in various management positions and holds a Master's of Science degree in economics. So Ludo is definitely a great presenter for us to have today. Before we get started, I would like to point out a few important features. Before I get started and I point out a few important features on your screen that you'll be using to interact with us via the web today, I wanted to give you a few ASTA updates. First of all, have you heard that our ASTA Global Convention is going completely virtual this year? This will be an epic experience like none other that you've been to. Learn more about our ASTA Global Live happening August 25th through 28th on astaglobalive.org. We look forward to seeing you all there, and I know our amazing presenters do as well, as Amadeus, one of our ASTA Proud partners, will also be there in attendance and hosting one of our Lunch and Learn sessions. Another quick message from our ASTA advocacy team. As most of you may know, back in March, ASTA had some major successes, particularly helpful to our small business members. You all were at the helm of this success, contacting your local reps, and right now we need that same energy. Please contact your local reps again and act now to save travel advisors and our industry. Visit our ASTA Grassroots portal and please continue to share this message far and wide, as these next few weeks are extremely crucial for us. Now back to today's presentation. We'll be answering all of your questions at the end of this presentation. To ask a question, you will be using your GoToWebinar pane. Near the bottom of this pane, there is an area that says questions. You can use this to send me any issues. You can use this same pane to send me any issues, and I will answer them via the same questions pane. Also in this pane, there's an area labeled Handouts. Here is where you find a downloadable PDF copy of today's presentation. Please be sure to download this PDF, as this is the only time that it will be accessible. Please note, we certainly want to hear from you all, but with so many people on today's call, background noise would prove to be prohibitive, and we want to ensure that everyone can hear Amadeus's entire presentation. Finally, remember that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for your on-demand viewing at asta.org by the end of the week. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Ludo. Ludo, please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cara. So good afternoon, everybody, and it's an absolute pleasure to have all of you listening in and watching this webinar on Amadeus and NDC moving forward. So as Cara said, the initial plan was to do it together with my colleague Robert, but unfortunately we couldn't make it indeed due to personal circumstances. So I will do my best to take you in the next 55 minutes through the presentation. I'll try to do it in 45 minutes so we can make sure that there's some time at the end for some live questions and answers. So if we look at the agenda for today, so what we have prepared is that we would first want to give you a quick update on the industry, okay? So what do we see that's going on with NDC? Where are we? And then we'll focus really on, let's say, the Amadeus NDC journey. So we'll start with giving you some more details on the program that we set up already 2.5 years ago. Of course, we'll give you a detailed look at our solutions, the key functionalities, including a demo. So if technology let's say, works as planned, then we should be able to share with you a 5-6 minute video where you can really see how the NDC content, let's say, looks like in our solution and how easy it is to work with NDC content in the Amadeus solutions. And then, of course, as a next step, we also will give you some details on how you can get NDC ready with us before we wrap up today's session and have 10 minutes for the Q&A. Before we start with the industry update, we actually want to do a very quick poll just to understand your level of knowledge of NDC, because that will also help me in making sure that I adapt the message accordingly. So let's take a minute for the poll.
Ludo, we do have some responses pouring in here. As of right now, it looks like beginner is winning by 63%. So 63% beginner. Looks like we are coming up with 23% intermediate, and trailing very far behind, we have advanced with 12% right now.
Okay, excellent. That's very good to know. So then I'll make sure that I'll keep the message, let's say, relatively easy to understand. I will not go into too many technical details because I don't think that's needed for today. But my intention will be to make sure that by the end of today's session, all of you will be at least an intermediate level. That's my goal for today. So let's see if I can get you there. So let's start with the industry, okay? And let's start with quickly looking at NDC as a protocol, right? So starting with the basics, what is NDC, right? Because a lot has been said, a lot has been written about NDC over the last few years. But ultimately, NDC, the way that we see it, right, it's nothing more and nothing less than a new communication protocol that allows third parties or external systems to communicate with the airline system, right? So today, what we're using in the GDS world is a different protocol called the EDIFACT protocol that has been around now for already 40 years. So it's true that the protocol that today is used is, or let's say, a legacy protocol. And what the industry is intending to do with NDC is changing the protocol that today is used for the indirect distribution with a new protocol based on a much more modern language, on the XML language, okay? And the main advantage of moving towards a new technology standard, in this case the XML standard, is that the new standard will allow for a much richer information exchange. So it will allow airlines not only to give information on the price and availability, because that's what's happening today with the EDIFACT protocol, but it will also allow airlines to send along much more rich information, like richer descriptions, even if, let's say in the future, videos, pictures, and all of that. Okay, so that's one of the big advantages of moving to this new protocol. But at the same time, we should not forget that it's only changing a technology protocol, right? So it's only changing the way let's say, the systems of GDSs like Amadeus in the back talk with the airline system. And that means that it's a business and a channel agnostic protocol, right? So NDC can be used, let's say, by any player to be communicating directly with the airline system, and it has nothing to do with the actual business model in place, right? Because, and that's one of the, I would say, probably misconceptions that we also would very much like to get out of the room. A lot has been talked now about the fact that with NDC, the whole business model of indirect distribution changed as well. Let's say, that change of a business model has, let's say, if it happens, right, it is not related to the actual technology change, right? So purely the technology change, we could perfectly do it with all the business models that we have in place today. It does, however, introduce two new concepts that are very important and that I would like to highlight here. And that's the concept of an offer and an order, okay? Because the main difference, if we move, let's say, from today's EDIFACT protocol to the new NDC protocol, is the fact that whereas in today's GDS distribution environment, the GDSs are putting together all the offers, right, and calculate the pricing. In the case of NDC, the offer is being put together by the airline and is coming directly from the airline system into the GDS, and then from the GDS to the travel agency, right? Or it could go, of course, directly from the airline system to the travel agency or any other system that would connect with the airline. So that's a very, very important difference. So the NDC offers that you might have heard about is the fact that it's the airline that will be creating the, let's say, the flight offer or the bundle on their side, and they will make that bundle offer available as is through the NDC distribution channels. The other new concept is what we call the NDC order. And that means that also the reservation, so the master reservation record of a booking done through NDC will sit on the airline side. Whereas today in the GDS distribution, the master reservation record is actually sitting on the GDS side, right? It's the GDS PNR. And the airlines, they make a copy of that PNR. So in an NDC world, it's the other way around. The main reservation record called the NDC order will sit on the airline system. And then what the GDSs or other distribution systems will do is they will create a copy of that reservation record. So in the case of Amadeus, that copy would be the Amadeus PNR. Okay. So that's, let's say, in a nutshell, the main technological differences that will be brought to the industry if we move from today's EDIFACT GDS-based distribution to an NDC-based distribution. Okay. So before we go now into looking at where we are as an industry, let's quickly, right, address, of course, the topic that's one of the topics that's on all of our minds in the travel industry, right? So what do we see happening with NDC in today's COVID situation, and what do we expect post-COVID, right? Once the business, let's say the industry picks up again and people start traveling more, around the world. So NDC in a post-COVID world, if we look at the main players, right, which are the airlines that are investing in NDC technology and are let's say, going ahead with their strategies, we're seeing that the large carriers that started their NDC journey a few years ago are still continuing their plans, and they really count on NDC for the rebound. They really count on NDC that when business picks up again, that they can capitalize on their investments that they've already done and start making more dynamic, more personalized offers available through their NDC channels, right? So we don't see any, let's say, significant change in plans or change in strategy when it comes to the large carriers that have already been on their NDC journey for a few years now, right? So in the US, that's I would say all the main carriers, and especially American Airlines, United, and some of the others as well. Okay. And in general, talking as well with travel agencies, with TMCs, with online travel agencies, NDC still remains a priority for most of them. Okay, maybe some of the activity has slowed down a bit over the last few months, because of other priorities or because of furloughs. But overall, we're seeing still a very good engagement from the industry on NDC and within our NDC program. And definitely for us as Amadeus, that is definitely the case, right? So we're still investing, let's say, heavily in NDC, and we're still going forward with our NDC plans, just as before the COVID situation. However, at the same time, we also need to recognize that players that, and especially when it comes to small and medium-sized carriers that haven't really invested yet in NDC, of course, for those players, it's a bit more questionable what will happen over the next 18 to 24 months, and if they will have the investment capacity to start investing in NDC, or if they will wait a bit longer, which is right now the most likely scenario, that they will wait a bit longer until the business is at a more stable level again, so they also have the investment capability. So we probably will see that the large players keep pushing forward, but the smaller players will probably have to wait a while. And then last but not least, what we've seen, of course, now in the COVID situation, and especially in the first few months, right? And you as travel agency, of course, have lived that in your everyday lives, is the importance of servicing, right? With all of the refunds, with all of the cancellations, with all of the post-booking activities that had to take place over the last 3-4 months, it's clear that efficient servicing is one of the most important, I would say, areas that we really need to make sure that we cover well with NDC. Okay. So having said that, where are we today with NDC? Let's say if we look at it from, let's say, from an industry perspective. No? So the NDC journey started already several years ago, but it has been a complex journey, as probably most of you will agree with. No, with where a lot of changes happened, a lot of progress has been made, especially over the last 18 to 24 months. But at the same time, it is more complex than probably many players thought, and we're still seeing some areas where we need to progress more. Okay, so one of the areas that we're seeing where the industry needs to progress more is when it comes to the standardization of NDC. So IATA has defined, of course, a standard, and every year they are releasing 2 new versions of the NDC standard. So currently we're in the version 20.1, and soon the version 20.2 will probably be released. And in each version, right, new functionalities are being added. But what we're seeing is that, unfortunately, the way that this standard is being interpreted by the different players, so by airlines or by the IT providers behind the airlines, there are still quite a lot of differences. Okay, let me give one clear example of that. So when it comes to changing an NDC booking, okay, so in today's industry, when it comes to the airlines that have started to work with NDC, we're seeing 2 very different ways of how an NDC booking can be modified. Both ways, let's say, are NDC compliant, but both are very different in their approach. So on the one hand, you have carriers. An example of those carriers is American Airlines or the Lufthansa Group or United Airlines, where if you want to change an existing NDC booking, you have to do what we call more of a schedule-driven change. So that means that you need to know the exact new flight that for which you want to change an existing flight, complete the details of that new flight, so include the flight number, booking class, and then, let's say, ask for a reshop of that specific flight. Okay, so that's the way that some carriers like American Airlines and United are handling that. And then there is another way that's being managed mainly by the European carriers, but also by Singapore Airlines or Air France KLM, for example. And that's what we call let's say a reshopping change, which means that if you want to change an existing NDC booking, you want to change it for a new date, for example, you send a reshop query to the airline with the new date, and then the airline will give you all the options that you can change the existing flight for with the different prices, right? And then you pick the one that you want to change it, and you do the change. So it's much more what we call a shopping-driven flow. So both ways are NDC compliant, but both are very different. Okay, I hope you can hear me good again. I understand there were some small issues with the audio. I hope it's good again. Okay. So that's one of the examples where we see that we do need a better standardization, and we need all the airlines and all the IT providers, we need to adhere more strictly to one single standard, right? And have one path for the different activities. Then when it comes to servicing, and I just explained how important servicing is, and you all know that, but I think the whole industry has seen that with the COVID-19 situation. There are still quite a lot of servicing use cases or post-booking use cases that aren't covered yet by the NDC standard. So we're working very closely together with the IATA, with the airlines and different work groups to make sure that going forward, we make the standard more and more complete, and that airlines also start supporting more additional servicing use cases. Then we're still seeing some challenges when it comes to the performance and scalability, although that's improving quite rapidly. Especially over the last 6 to 12 months, we're still seeing that when we do an NDC transaction, the shopping part, so let's say doing the search and then getting the results, that's going quite fast now, and that's more or less in line with the response times that we are used to in the regular GDS world. However, when it comes to, for example, the payment or the creation of an order or changing a reissue of an order, there we're seeing response times that are, let's say, as of 7, 8, up to maybe even 20 seconds, right? So that is still not at the level where it needs to be, okay? And we're also working very actively with airlines and with their IT providers to make sure that we start improving that as well. And then the last part, if we look at, let's say, areas where we feel that we need to progress still a bit more, is on the content side, right? So far, we haven't really seen any new content with NDC. No, so we've seen airlines, especially in Europe, not so much in the US, but in Europe, we've seen airlines that have started to take out certain fares from the GDS channel and only put it in their NDC channel. But that's a commercial strategy, right? That's not linked to any technological capabilities, right? So we really need, and we're pushing the airlines also to start creating content that's really unique and that can only be done through NDC, right? So some very promising signs that we're seeing now and that we're working with actively together with American Airlines and with United Airlines are corporate bundles, right? So we hope that by the end of this year, we will start seeing the first results from that. So then we can really start seeing true personalized bundles that are created through NDC, and it would be very difficult to replicate in, let's say, in a GDS environment. And we need more of that new and unique content, no? Because that will drive adoption at the end. So that's our overview, let's say, of the industry. So I hope that has given you a bit more insight on, first of all, the impact, no, that we've seen from the current COVID situation, but especially also where we are as a standard. So a lot of progress has been made over the last 18 months, but there's still a couple of areas where we need to progress a bit more. Now, looking at our approach, right? So what's the Amadeus approach when it comes to NDC? So what we've done is we've actually set up a program within the company that spans our whole portfolio and all our activities. Now, of course, as Amadeus, we're quite uniquely positioned because we're not only the largest GDS in the world, the largest distributor of air content, we're also the largest IT provider to airlines, as you probably know. So that means that we're not only now building NDC solutions for you as a travel agency, but we're also building NDC solutions for the airlines. So what we've done is we've put all these activities under the roof of one single program called the Amadeus NDCX program, and that really allows us to make sure that what we develop on the IT side for the airlines makes sense on the distribution side, and what we build for the travel agencies, that of course that's taken into account when we build our IT solutions. And that way we're really capable of having a lot of synergies between both sides. Okay. And at the same time, of course, we're making sure that we're not building our solutions in isolation, but we're very closely working together with a lot of travel agencies, with airline partners, with IATA through their work groups to make sure that we keep pushing the standards, let's say, in the right direction, and that we build the solutions and the functionalities and the servicing flows that the industry needs. And last but not all, so our focus, and you'll see that in a few minutes when we show you where we are with our solution, our focus from the beginning has really been on making sure that NDC brings value to all players, right? And we knew from the start that the only way that NDC will bring value to you as a travel agency is, of course, not only it needs to be easy to search, book, and compare, right? NDC content next to other content. But what's very important is as well that it's fully integrated in your existing workflows, that it's integrated in your existing infrastructure, it's integrated in your mid and back office systems, because only that way we know we can have, let's say, a global adoption of the NDC standard. And that's also why we've been focusing, as you'll see in the next few slides, a lot on the servicing aspect, right? Making sure that you can not only book an NDC content, but that you also can easily change it, do a refund, do a cancellation, add ancillary services, all of that. So where are we in terms of our airline partners? No? So first of all, we are working very closely together with several of the large North American carriers. So with American Airlines, who was one of our first partners of the NDCX program, we are very advanced because we've actually now developed the full end-to-end flow with American Airlines. And in a few minutes, I'll show you all the functionalities that are today already in place based on the American Airlines NDC content. Then towards the end of this year, we expect to be at the same level with United Airlines. So also having all of their NDC content and all of the flows integrated. And apart from American United, we're also very actively working together with Air Canada, and we're also actively working together with Delta Airlines. Okay. Then apart from these important North American carriers, we of course engaging and working together with many more airlines. And here you can see 5 airlines that we actually expect to have fully integrated by the end of this year as well. So we have Singapore Airlines, Qantas, Finnair, Cathay Pacific, and Japan Airlines. And apart from these airlines, we're actually partnering with many more airlines. We're also very actively engaging with all of the large European carriers and with carriers from other regions as well. So let's listen 1 or 2 minutes to a short video of our partner American Airlines on how they see NDC and how they see the collaboration with Amadeus. Great, thanks a lot, Cara, for putting in that video. And it, at least on my side, it worked very smoothly. No, so it's great to hear, of course, of our partners, in this case, like American Airlines, on how they see the NDC journey and on the very good and close collaboration indeed between our companies to really make sure that we drive NDC forward together. So talking about driving NDC forward together, so what's our approach, right? So how are we making sure that the NDC content is integrated fully into the Amadeus ecosystem and with that into your systems? So at the basis of our strategy is what we call the Amadeus Travel Platform, okay? And this is really an evolution of our global distribution system where what we have been doing over the last few years is we have re-engineered, if you like, in a way, our global distribution system to make sure that it can not only handle much more content from, let's say, different types of content, but especially also content from much more sources, right? and then making sure that all the content comes together in one platform and can then easily be exposed, let's say, through the different interfaces. So right now, of course, our focus is on the NDC content. And the way that we are making the NDC content available is alongside the rest of the content, right? So alongside the EDIFACT GDS content and low-cost content. So what we do is we integrate the NDC content in the backend of our Amadeus Travel platform. And then we've created a new API called the Amadeus Travel API. And through that API, we push out, if you like, all the NDC content together with the rest of the content. And that means that, let's say, if you want to use our web service, our API, you would use that same travel API, but also our own internal applications. So the Amadeus Selling Platform Connect agency desktop tool, or our online booking tool, or our mobile applications, they're all based on the Amadeus Travel API as well. And that allows us to have full, what we call, interoperability between the different Amadeus solutions. So what does that mean? And later in the demo, you can actually see how that works in practice. That means that if an NDC booking, for example, is started in an online booking tool or in a mobile application, then that booking can be retrieved or can be finished or can be serviced very easily in the agency desktop environment, right? And vice versa. If a booking is created in the agency environment, then, for example, the traveler could very easily retrieve that in their application, because it's all, let's say, powered by the same Amadeus Travel platform. So where are we today in terms of the functionalities that we already support? Okay, and what I wanted to make clear is that so all these functionalities, we today already support them for American Airlines, at the end of the year as well for United Airlines, and in the coming months as well for several other airlines like Singapore Airlines, Finnair, Qantas, and the others to come. Okay. So first of all, right, we support a fully aggregated search flow. That means you do one search, let's say through, for example, the agency desktop, as we'll show you later, and you get all the different results back in one screen, right? So very easy to compare then the NDC content next to the GDS content and the low-cost content. We support full ancillary services, so you can add seats, bags, with an interactive seat map. For the mid and back office integration, we're still using the Amadeus interface record. So it's the same record that we're using today for the GDS content. We've just added some fields with specific NDC content, but that means that it's the same, let's say, mid and back office integration that you're having today. And then we support several forms of payment. So you can pay with credit cards. You can pay also by cash through ARC or BSP settlement. And then in terms of servicing, very important, of course. So once the NDC booking has been made, it can also be voided. It can be canceled. You can do a refund, or you can change the NDC booking. And in the case of Amadeus, actually to two different flows, depending on the flow that the NDC airline supports. So with that, we feel that we already have all the basic functionalities in place so that you can start working with NDC content. And what we're now doing is we're further enhancing our solution by adding additional functionalities or by optimizing some of them. So one of the solutions that we are now about to finalize is the Amadeus Margin Manager solution, which can be used to actually add markups on top of NDC fares. Something very important for a travel agency, so that way when they agree on, for example, net fares on NDC or any other fares, they can mark them up. We're also going to be able to handle credit card fees in the next few months. So that's very important for certain regions as well. And very important, we're now making the NDC content, let's say the reservation that we're using on the travel agency on your side is going to be an active flight segment, right? So that means that when you do an NDC booking in Amadeus, we will use an active flight segment within the Amadeus PNR to represent the NDC booking. And the reason why we've done that is because we feel that that's the least disruptive way for you to be able to handle NDC PNRs. Because it also means that if you have certain applications or processes running on today's Amadeus PNRs, you can then also still have them based on the NDC PNRs. Okay, So let's take 5 minutes so we can show you how it really looks like. No, because I know that on PowerPoint everything sticks, but let me show you now how the NDC content is live and how you can do a booking first, for example, in an online booking tool, and then service it in the agency desktop tool. So let's take a look. Okay, great. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Kara, for showing that video. Yeah, for us it was very important to actually show you that video because then you can really see how it looks and feels like in our solutions, right? And how easy it is, or at least we hope that you agree with us, how easy it is in our cloud-based Amadeus Selling Platform Connect agency desktop to search for the NDC content, have all the results next to all the other content, and then do the NDC booking. And also after the booking, very important, of course, how easy it is to modify an NDC booking, to add a seat, to do a refund, avoid a cancellation, all of that. And as I said, all of that is already available today and is actually live in production. So, so where are we, let's say, on our journey? You know? So when we started the journey at the beginning of 2018, we started to build, let's say, the foundation, right, our solutions. So that's what we did in 2018. Then last year, actually, we deployed already the first versions of our solution. So we have actually been live since the end of 2018, but we've only deployed it, let's say, to a few early adopters because we were still improving our solutions. Now this year is the year where we are accelerating the rollout. So we're starting now making our NDC solutions more readily available. And as a matter of fact, it is available now to any customer, let's say, that is interested, Amadeus customer that's interested in getting extra NDC content. It's fully available now. And what we'll do is we'll start, let's say, also proactively rolling it out to markets towards the end of the year. Okay. And then we feel confident that next year we'll start seeing real volumes at scale of NDC bookings through our solutions. So how can you get NDC ready with us? So it's quite easy. If today you are using our web services to access our air content, then what you would need to do is to implement our new travel API. So it's a new web service that includes the NDC content. However, if you use, let's say, if you're an Amadeus user based on Selling Platform, then the only thing you need to do is make sure that you're using our cloud-based Selling Platform Connect solution and our new redesigned graphical user interface called Amadeus All Fares. Okay, so that's a part of Selling Platform that has been activated worldwide over the last few months. So all of you should have access to the All Fares graphical user interface, and it's in that same graphical user interface that we will be pushing the NDC content, right? So once it's activated on your end, then it's through the All Fares graphical user interface that the NDC content will come through. And of course, you also will need to make sure that your mid and back office system is capable of handling the NDC bookings. So for that, let's say we will share with you the documentation on our Amadeus interface record and the small changes that have been made to that, so you can make sure that your mid and back office provider can also, let's say, implement those changes, and then you're fully ready to go. So as a wrap up, right? And what are the main takeaways that I would like you to take away from today's presentation? And then we'll go to the Q&A session, where of course I'll be more than happy to answer any additional question that you might have. So first of all, we're live today with NDC. We've been live since the end of 2018, but really since let's say this year, we've started with the further rollout of our NDC solutions. We've built a fully integrated flow and a singular flow into the Selling Platform Connect solution. Very important, which means that you have only one flow to access all of the content and also one flow to service all of the content. And as you've seen before, we're also supporting the main North American carriers, right? With American Airlines fully integrated, United coming over the next months, and then next year also, let's say, following Air Canada and other carriers as well. Okay. So with that, I see that I actually managed to end exactly after 45 minutes as planned. So I'm more than happy to take any questions if you have them regarding our solutions, regarding our strategy, or regarding the industry. Feel free, and I'll do my best to answer your questions.
Thank you so much for the amazing presentation, Ludo. We do have some questions coming through. And before we jump in, it looks like a question that has been overwhelmingly asked is, what does NDC stand for? It looks like we have a few advisors who had never heard of it before.
Sorry, I was on mute. Then my bad, because yes, I should have started with that. So NDC stands for New Distribution Capability, right? So it's an initiative that was started by IATA, the International Airline Association, already. I would say they started it 8 years ago, when together with the airlines, they were looking into, okay, so how can we improve the way that airline content is being distributed in the indirect channel, right? So through the travel agency channel. So the objective of NDC is really to improve the travel agency distribution channel, the information and the offers that are being made available through the travel agency channel. That's the main goal and objective of NDC, of this new distribution capability.
Thank you so much, Ludo. And what made you switch your platform?
Okay. So to be very honest, we didn't switch our platform, but I do understand the question. No? So because I guess the question hints at, now that we have the Amadeus travel platform, no, that's powering our distribution. In reality, it's not so much switch, but what we did is we have, let's say, re-engineered parts of our existing global distribution system to make sure that it became much more flexible and much more scalable. Okay, so we were actually the first GDS that completely moved out of the old, let's say, the TPF mainframe systems that all GDSs were built upon 30, 40 years ago. And so we started already a project almost 10 years ago to move away from those mainframes and really go to, let's say, open technology. And we've completed that journey a few years ago. And that now allows us to have a distribution platform that's more flexible, more scalable, and much more future-proof. So we didn't switch, but let's say we upgraded our platform. And the big advantage of that is that it means that you do not have to switch, let's say, your solutions, but you can keep using the same Amadeus Selling Platform Connect solution like you're using today. And what we're doing is, let's say, that what's powering your Selling Platform Connect solution, that's what we've upgraded in the back.
Thank you so much for your explanation, Ludo. We have a lot of advisors writing in, and thanking you for that. Looks like our next question is going to be, when will the NDC platform be integrated with the selling platform?
Yeah, so that's already done, right? That's the good news. So the technical integration has already been done because it's the Amadeus travel platform in the back that's powering also Selling Platform Connect. However, the reason why you're not seeing the NDC content coming through yet, and I guess that's what was meant with that question, is because we need to activate it in the back, right? So what we will do is, so you don't need to change anything on your side in the sense that you have your Amadeus Selling Platform Connect, you keep using it just like today. And when you are ready to start working with NDC content, we can activate, so we do a switch in the back, and then your NDC content will come through. But we're not going to do that, of course, without your approval, right? Without your confirmation that, yes, indeed, you want to start seeing the NDC content. And also with your confirmation that, let's say, that you've been, that your mid and back office system is also capable of handling the NDC PNRs. So technically, everything is done. It's just then on a case-by-case basis. So whenever you're ready, reach out to your account manager, and they will take you through the steps, ask you some questions to make sure that you're ready, and then we will activate it in the back, and you're good to go. Then you'll see the American Airlines NDC content coming through your solution, and you'll be able to start booking it.
Thank you, Ludo. It looks like we have an advisor who's wondering if they have to have the back office system in order for this to work.
No. So if today you're not working with any specific back office system, then nothing changes to the, what we want to make sure is that nothing changes to the way you're working today, right? So if today you're having a back office system that's integrated with the Amadeus system, then of course we need to make sure that also going forward, that integration keeps working. If you don't have that, then no worries. No, there's absolutely no need for that. It's really meant for the agencies that already have such an integration in place today, and that want to make sure, of course, that they keep the same type of integration and functionalities going forward.
Perfect. Thank you again, Ludo. We have another advisor wondering if all airlines will be on NDC.
That will take a long time, to be very honest. Okay, so and that comes a bit back to what I said at the beginning of the webinar on what we're seeing happening in the industry, right? So a lot of the large carriers, they started their NDC journey already a few years ago, so they've invested already a lot of money, a lot of efforts. They've built teams around it, and they're pretty much good to go, right? So those carriers, yes, they will push for the NDC distribution, let's say in coming months and years. However, at the same time, there are a lot of airlines that haven't started their NDC journey yet because they had other priorities, or they didn't have the investment capacity. So that will take time, right? And especially given current situation, investment capacity will be very difficult. So that's why we are very sure that we are going to be living in what we call a hybrid world for quite a while, right? Where we have today's GDS-powered distribution still in place, and it will be complemented with NDC distribution. And that's really behind our strategy as well. As you've seen, within the Selling Platform Connect, we have both, right? So all the airlines that keep making their content available through the regular, let's say, GDS channel, you keep all that. And what we'll be adding is more and more NDC content from the airlines that also start using the NDC channel. So it's really going to be the mix of both. And over time, probably that mix will move more and more towards, the weight of NDC bookings will get bigger. But at the beginning, it will be a small weight, and will gradually bigger depending on, let's say, how much more airlines also start building their NDC infrastructure. But just to clarify, just to add to that, but even for airlines that are already NDC ready, we still expect that there will be a mix, right? So part of the bookings will go through the regular GDS channel, and part of the bookings will go through the new NDC channel.
Thank you, Ludo. Looks like we have some other advisors wondering if NDC is offered or will work easily with Sabre and Concur. On Sabre, I guess you should ask that Sabre, where, let's say, where they are with the NDC integration. I can tell you, yes, Sabre is also, of course, working on the integration of NDC content, but where they exactly are, that question is better asked to them. Now, Concur, as an online booking tool, is using different sources, right? And Amadeus is one of the content sources that Concur is using to get air content, and we are in active conversations with Concur also around NDC. Thank you. Give me one moment. We have so many questions coming in. For NDC, do advisors have to use graphical? Okay, that's a good question. And yes, the answer is indeed, for the NDC content, it needs to go through the graphical user interface. And the reason for that is quite simple. The cryptic user interface, and because I guess that's the alternative, that's being referenced to. The cryptic user interface that we know is heavily used by travel agents around the world. Now, we're very much aware of that. But what you have to realize is that the cryptic user interface is a direct, let's say, representation of the current transactions that are being sent through the EDIFACT protocol that we're using today between, let's say, the GDS and the airline, right? So that's what the cryptic entries do. Now, since we're moving to a new protocol, right? So the NDC, the XML protocol, the transactions that are being done through the old protocol are not being done, let's say, one-on-one through the new protocol, right? So it's within NDC, all the actions are more, if you like, more retail-oriented actions, right? So instead of having 3 small transactions, for example, to do a refund,
you would just have one refund action that you would send through the new protocol. So it's a different level. And my apologies if it's getting a bit technical now, but the way that NDC is structured, it's very difficult to replicate that or to represent that with cryptic transactions. And that's why but I think pretty much everybody in the industry for NDC is moving to a full graphical flow. Also because, of course, a graphical flow will allow us to take much better advantage of all the richer information that will become available with NDC, right? So all the information, for example, on the in-flight services, on the cabin, on the seats, descriptions that the airlines will be sending. All of that, of course, is much easier to integrate and much better to visualize in a graphical environment. So yes, that is indeed a change that will be required from you if you want to start working with NDC content. And today you're predominantly working in a cryptic environment and transaction environment, then yes, for the NDC part, that will need to go through the graphical environment. But it's very intuitive, as you probably have seen in the demo.
Thank you, Ludo. It looks like we have time for about 2 more questions here before we end our presentation for today. Is there a website where training videos may be available for NDC?
I didn't fully understand your question. A white paper, was that the question? Sorry, or?
So we have some advisors wondering if there is a website that they could visit with more information on the NDC, as well as any training videos on how to use the platform.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as a matter of fact, we'll make sure that that we'll share with you the links to. So we have to our website where you can find all the information on NDC, where we are in the journey. You'll find more background information and videos as well of how the NDC solutions work. So yes, all of that is available on our website. And we'll make sure that we share the link with you after the webinar.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So everyone, you will be receiving a follow-up email in the next few days from this webinar, and that will include those important links that everyone is looking for. And our last question for the good of the group, Ludo, will NDC be available to the public for booking?
Okay, so for the end user, right? So NDC is a communication protocol for indirect distribution, right? So it's meant for the distribution between the airline and the travel agency. Now, of course, online travel agencies will be using NDC as well to make more offers available on their website. So then in an indirect way, you could say that means that the NDC content becomes available to the public, but it's really, NDC is really meant to power the travel agency channel, right? So it's meant to make sure that it powers, let's say, the content that the travel agencies distribute. But of course, if it's displayed in an online booking tool or on a website, yeah, then indirectly it's available to the public as well. For the websites of the airlines, okay, some airlines might use the NDC technology, but a lot of airlines are using different technologies that they already have in place for the websites, right? So it's a bit of a mix.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much, Ludo. I know that our advisors are super appreciative of all of this information that you were able to offer them. Again, everyone, this webinar was being recorded and will be available on asta.org in our video resources library within the next few days. So if you would like to rewatch this presentation, or if you have any advisors that you would like to push it out to, please be sure that you are visiting asta.org. Again, please be sure to download this presentation from our handout section before we end this webinar today. And one more time, I would like to give a big virtual round of applause for our amazing presenter, Ludo. Ludo, you did a great job leading the presentation on your own, and we're so appreciative again. I want to thank Amadeus, of course, for being such an amazing, proud partner throughout this year, especially with everything going on. And we definitely want to also thank all of you for joining us today. We hope that you all enjoyed today's webinar, and this will conclude our presentation. Ludo, do you have any parting words for us?
No, just thank you all for your attention, and thanks to ASTA, of course, for giving us the opportunity to give this presentation. I know it's not an easy topic. It's a topic that a lot is written and said about, and it will keep us, let's say, busy for many years to come. But we want you to know that with Amadeus, you have a technology partner that is making sure that all of this is available to all of you in the most intuitive and least disruptive way, so you can concentrate on what you're good at, right? And that's giving the best service to your customers. So we would be delighted, of course, to help you with that. So with that, thank you all again. And of course, it would be a pleasure for us to connect again in the future and give you an update on where we are with either NDC or any other solution.
All right, Ludo, thank you. And again, thank you all for joining us. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.